Hello and welcome to iBuzz. I'm your host Nosheen Bukhari with yet another exciting episode of entertainment news, followed by the woman's role in music industry. But before we move ahead, let me quickly take you to the top stories of the day. Cannes Film Festival to open in July by Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard star movie. Game of Thrones celebrates its first decade. The franchise will continue to live on with a prequel and a lot of spin-offs. Dwayne Johnson blames Ryan Reynolds for all the takes they ruined on the set of Netflix's Red Notice. American Idol Top 9 revealed, one contestant reduced to tears, another leaves us that way. And Taylor Swift is back at #1 for the third time in less than a year. Coming to our top story of the day. Even though Game of Thrones has already ended, fans still have a lot to look forward to in Westeros. Get the details on the many spin-offs currently in the works. To discuss this further, we have Rachel Lopez, who happens to be an associate editor in Hindustan Times. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
So, Rachel, Game of Thrones is celebrating its first decade. And a lot of celebrations were, they were about to take place, but because of pandemic, they could not, work their way out. How much fire and how much ice do you expect from the prequels and spin-offs that were announced while the celebrations of this first decade?
Oh, that's a great question. I think despite what they did with the last seasons of the TV series, there seems to be so much love for the stories, for the characters and where we left them and how we left them, that I think even if the prequels feature a completely different time zone, a completely different area, there are a lot of stories that are being set in Easteros, which is a completely different continent in that world. I think there's so much fan interest. I think there are so many other stories that can be spun out of these existing plot lines. That I think there's going to be plenty of fire, ice, magic, and blood and sex, as George R.R. Martin would have wanted.
Right. And Rachel, do you expect House of Dragons, which was released as a book by the writer himself in 2018, do you expect the prequel to, exactly complement the book, or do you expect the same sort of changes that were made in the season? There were a lot of changes that were made that were not according to the book. At some places, we also heard the rumors that the writer was not happy with those changes. But do you think that this thing is going to be applied in House of Dragons as well?
I hope it will, because a lot of the books which fans will tell you are overwritten. Not everyone who's loved the show is a fan of fantasy writing specifically. And those books can get a little long-winded. They can get a little boring. So what HBO did, and we don't thank them enough, is to compress really complex stories into really sort of, concentrated flashbang, television. And I hope that if there is going to be a deviation from the books and a deviation from the stories, that it at least holds the essence and sort of amplifies it, puts some dragon fire into it, so to speak, so that it explodes on TV. That's really what I want.
Right. And since the fans had, developed that sort of love for Game of Thrones, do you think that House of Dragons has to work hard to, come up to their expectations? Otherwise, it's going to be yet another failure. Do you think so?
Oh, absolutely. I think the good thing is that they have the source material to work with, because we've all seen what happens when there aren't any books to fall back on. The TV show crumbles, the production crumbles. And they make stupid mistakes, like just shooting the battle scenes so dark that you don't know what's happening.
Right.
So I hope that the stupid mistakes have been learned from. And I'm very glad that there is a story to work with. But it all also depends on whether George R. Martin's long shadow on the production kind of continues, because he was so integral to making sure that certain scenes sparkled and certain characters said or behaved things, and did the things that they did without us and without even sometimes the TV shows knowing what was going to come next. So all of that foreshadowing comes from GRRM's brain. And
Right.
I hope that his brains are deployed for every prequel, sequel, whatever.
Rachel, thank you very much indeed for your time and discussion.
Thank you, Nosheen. Thanks, everyone.
Our second guest is from UK, Andy Jones, who is a journalist and a broadcast who writes in The Times, The Sunday, and also works for BBC TV and radio. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Thank you for having me.
So, Game of Thrones is celebrating its first decade. What are your thoughts on the spin-offs and the prequels that they have announced, which are going to be released in the year 2022?
It was betrayals, it was war, it was Jon Snow, it was Arya Stark, Tyrion, Joffrey, all of those characters. All of the prequels, as the title suggests, are all way before that. All of that kind of thing happens. It was all 300 years before any of Fire and Blood takes place. And the series is called The House of Dragon. This takes place 300 years before, as I said, and it's the warring ancestors of Daenerys Targaryen. So the Queen of Dragons, the Emilia Clarke character with the amazing blonde hair. And it includes her warring ancestors, Rhaenyra Targaryen and Aegon Targaryen. And it starts out with Paddy Considine, who's been cast as King Viserys Targaryen, who plays a rather nice old king before his warring family all tear it all apart for him.
Right, right. And what do you think is the reason that they specifically chose House of Dragons? Of course, there is a book on it as well, but there were Dothrakis as well during that era. So, do you think that this complements the the political situation around the world? What are your thoughts on this selection?
I mean, who knows if it complements the political situation around the world. I think when you've got, for instance, the House of Lannister, where you've got such strong characters like Tyrion, etc., and Joffrey and Tywin, and then also characters like Jon Snow, and also the Dothrakis and things like that. I think they're so strong in people's minds already that it's quite hard to move away from them, because we hear so much about the Targaryens, but actually know so little. We only ever really see Daenerys and one or two other Targaryens. You can actually start with a clean slate. I think if they started doing like a young Joffrey or a young Tyrion or a young Jon Snow series, it'd almost be too controversial. It's almost better to have some of the great themes and some of the background of Game of Thrones, and then build new characters within it and new dramas. I think also, and the huge difficulty is so many of the Game of Thrones characters are dead, murdered, killed, without giving you any spoilers. We can't do any after the Game of Thrones, so we have to do prequels, and then when many of the books and many of the bits and pieces are already assembled by George R.R. Martin, that's the best way to go.
Right, right. So the season went off with great success when it started. It managed to, keep the fans hooked till season 7. But after that, there were two schools of thought. One said that, okay, it ended finally, but the other one was disappointed. Do you think that this spin-off and this prequel is going to come up to the expectations, and the damage that it has done to the disappointed fans, it is going to repair that?
Who knows? I mean, we won't see it until 2022. I think one of the fundamental problems with Game of Thrones is it went on. First of all, it's impossible to sustain, or very hard to sustain, 7 seasons of incredible drama. And also, when the drama hinges every episode on a main character being killed, it becomes very, very difficult as you run out of main characters.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people's favourite characters, and we love the series so much, they all got killed off, or they all disappeared, or they all got banished, or whatever happened to them. And then you're left sometimes with characters, Jon Snow, a lot of people like, but a lot of people find him a little bit simplistic. Daenerys, a lot of people like, a lot of people don't. And then it's sort of like, well, where's my favourite character? Well, your favourite character's just had their head cut off on some battlefield somewhere, or just been stabbed in the back, or poisoned, etc., etc. And so when your favourite characters die in a TV series, it's very, very hard to sustain the drama. And I think this is why they've taken some of the themes, some of the strands of Game of Thrones that we liked, and then they're just going to start with a new script, a new series, rather like the sort of prequels of Star Wars and similar franchises.
Right, right. And do you think that it's going to, again, I want to know your thoughts, that if it is going to make its way up, for the fact that the same cast is not going to be in this prequel, especially we do not see Emilia Clarke, the most important character of Queen Daenerys?
No, we don't. I mean, this is obviously 300 years
So do you
before
think
she's
that
born,
it's going to score the same way it has been scoring in Game of Thrones, or this is a risk that the team is taking, and a very different sort of attitude is going to be welcoming this time?
Yeah, I mean, look, Game of Thrones fans will watch this. They will watch every episode of it, regardless of whether it's great, bad, indifferent, and they will watch it to the very end. I think a lot of the casual viewers will certainly give it a real try. They're creating House of Dragon, which is the season that I'm talking about, involving the Targaryen characters. There's also other spin-offs. There's another season called 9 Voyages, which is also going to be brought out, which will involve one of the characters from the House of Dragon season I've just described. However, that hinges on House of Dragon being a success. So they're obviously laying their cards out and saying, well, if this is a success, we'll do this other show as well. There's also another season called Tales of Dunk and Egg, which features 2 characters which are in the George R.R. Martin series, Sir Duncan the Tall and a young Aegon Targaryen. Aegon Targaryen being one of the key characters in this House of Dragon season that we're about to, that's being filmed now. And then there's going to be an animated series, and they're going to use every single one of George R.R. Martin's words to turn into something else. But ultimately, the first one we will see is this season that I've just described, which is called House of the Dragon.
Right. Andy, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
That was Andy with his thoughts on the Game of Thrones prequel. Digging to the details of our other top stories of the day. Cannes 2021 Adam Driver, Marion Cotillard star to open film festival in July. The new film from French director Leos Carax will open the delayed Cannes Film Festival in July. Annette, it brings together 2 favorites of independent cinema, Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard, as a glamorous celebrity couple whose lives are upended by the arrival of their first child, the mystery girl with a special destiny. The movie trailer was released on Monday, which indicates that this will be yet another visually arresting and wildly inventive film from Carax. Dwayne Johnson blames Ryan Reynolds for all the takes they ruined on the set of Netflix creation Red Notice, one of the most star-studded films that had to cease production during the global shutdown had to be Red Notice, which stars Dwayne Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot. In a recent appearance on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, Dwayne Johnson says that the ruined takes of Red Notice are all mostly Ryan Reynolds' fault, as he continually tried and succeeded in making Johnson break out in hysterics. Ryan Reynolds spoke a bit in his own previous Tonight Show appearance about how he would apparently repeat Dwayne Johnson's word back to him, but he gives the line faster and usually adds swear words, and this would leave Johnson laughing too hard to continue. American Idol Top 9 revealed 1 contestant reduced to tears, another leaves us that way. The top 12 had to say goodbye to 3 of their own in an Insta-Save situation on American Idol. And while the fans ultimately didn't agree with those results, at least no one among their very favorites went home. Taylor Swift is back at #1 for the 3rd time in less than a year. She says making records and breaking records is not easy. According to Billboard, she notched her 9th #1 album with the debut Fearless. This makes her the first woman to ever score 3 new #1 albums in less than a year, following last year's Folklore and Evermore. Now we hope that Taylor will leave a little space for some new artists. That's it from the newsroom. We will be right back after a quick short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In this segment, we will be talking about women's role in music industry. Seemingly an industry that is dominated by men has its fair share of women in it as well. To discuss this further, we have a songwriter and a singer with us, Natasha Baig. Natasha, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nosheen. Thank you so much.
Natasha, tell us about the influx of singers more than the instrument players, especially in Pakistan. What is the reason behind this? I mean, we don't see much of women music producers, women instrument players. We have a lot of singers, but then instrument players are very less in number when we talk about women. What are the possible reasons behind this?
I think it's the same reason for like now I'm seeing like a lot of girls and a lot of women coming into this music industry as vocalists, as singers. So I think now that people are a little accepting for this field, so I guess there will be in future there will be some girls who will be playing instruments and other and producing the song. And I see like a few of them right now, but they are not on the surface yet. But I'm hoping that it's gonna happen soon.
Right.
But I think if you are saying that if we lack them because they're already musicians are facing a lot of issues. I mean, like if I don't talk about gender, even men are facing issues in music industry. So I think this is the mentality, which is why we are lacking in this factor that we don't have much musicians, especially girls, and not even producers. I think because girls are not thinking in that dimension. But I am seeing some young girls now who are really inclined towards some other things. Like instead of singing, they are inclined towards playing an instrument or any like into production. So I'm hoping that in future we will see them.
Right. And Natasha, do you think that indie singers, especially the self-made singers, have their chance to make their way, especially when we hear a lot of monopoly going in the music industry? Do you still see hope in music industry for young women artists?
I think I see hope because of the situation today, because now we have social media and we have a platform to showcase our talent. And I think because of social media, you are not bound and you are not you're not waiting for someone so that they can portray, they can show your talent to others, because you have that power now. So I think my hopes are high because of social media, because it has the power to penetrate through masses. So it can happen. I think it needs a little time, a little patience, and somewhat luck also. And things can happen. And today, especially in the world of social media, and since social media has made us a global village now, so we can also, there's a chance that our work can, touch others' heart, like who are not in this country, who are from globally. I'm saying that globally, even our work can go. So yeah.
Right. And Natasha, tell us about the reaction that you received when you were, performing globally. How were you received? How were you welcomed by your audiences? How was your experience when you performed outside Pakistan?
It was beautiful. It was surreal because I don't know how to explain it. I mean, fine, like performing in our own country is also like one of the beautiful things, but performing outside the country, I see like a different kind of like, they have a different mind. They are different from us, different in the sense that they are extremely welcoming to new ideas and very fond of new stuff. And the way they compliment, it's really different. So I like their way of thinking as well.
Right. And tell us about the ongoing situation, the pandemic, which has, of course, hit us all hard in its own way. So how the pandemic has affected the artists, especially the women artists, and how do you see that this can be, coped? And if there are any solutions that you've been working on lately, or you have them on your mind, and you think that they can be shared and they're doable, tell us about them and the struggles of exclusively women artists about this whole situation.
As I told you before about the social media and the digital world thing. So after this pandemic, I actually realized that, the things are gonna get suffered, but the only one thing is still insufferable, and that is the social media and your digital presence. Because I was actually witnessing some people who have a very strong digital presence, and they were there. I don't think so that pandemic hit them really hard, because everything was digitally there, So after this pandemic, I did realize that I think I have to make myself, and it's a message for others also, if they think that it can work for them as well. But I actually decided that after this pandemic, I'm gonna work on my digital presence also. I'm gonna look into this because I think because the world is moving forward, and people are now relying on the digital world a lot, because pandemics like these, they can happen in future also.
Exactly.
Like I don't want that, but of course we can't control anything. So I think my hopes are now completely relying on the digital side, and I'm working on that. But yeah, pandemic actually hit us really hard, and musicians, yes, I will say, because musicians does not have any monthly sort of a thing going on, because our way of income is very difficult, because sometimes it's amazing, but sometimes we can hit rock bottom. So we are uncertain people, like in the sense of income. So it really made us think twice, and sometimes we had second thoughts that why we chose this career if this had to happen. So things like these were actually running in our minds. But the beautiful part was that all the musician community, they were supporting each other, and they were saying that that we are there for you, so don't worry about it. But I think we have to work on the digital presence here, because
and Natasha, tell us about your experience, because you have been you've been breaking stereotypes, especially when you performed in the Hunza Music Mela. How were you welcomed by your own people? Because I mean, things are not as normal as we see, especially in Hunza. They have different customs. So how were you welcomed by your own people? Watching you performing on stage.
It was beautiful, and I felt really emotional, because while I was performing there, I was getting all the flashbacks of the bad times when I was getting all the bashes, and when I was seeing all the people, and mostly youth, they were in front of me, and they were enjoying, they were shouting, they were having a great time, they were jumping, they were dancing, and I was just thinking to myself while performing that, oh my God, I'm a girl on the stage, and things have actually changed, because they're dancing on my songs. They are not looking at me as someone, on the gender basis, that she should not be on the stage. This is not in our culture, because I did not see anything like that. So I was, on the seventh sky, because things were amazing, and it did make me feel really good and really accomplished. Because I think the things that I wanted to do, I think it has already happened now. Yeah.
Natasha, it was wonderful talking to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And that was Natasha Baig discussing women's role in music industry. And that is it from our today's episode. We hope you liked it. Don't forget to share your feedback on the social media link mentioned down below. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care and goodbye.